The jungle was alive with sound, but to Sergeant Jacob Shadow Cole, it was a symphony of silence. His eyes narrowed as he crept forward, his boots making no noise on the damp earth. The dense canopy above filtered the sunlight into ghostly shafts of light, but he barely noticed. Everything about this world, the thick, suffocating humidity, the eerie rustle of unseen creatures, was a far cry from the battlefields he had known. Still, it didn't matter. This was just another mission, and like every other one before it, he would get the job done. His sniper rifle, a customized Barrett M82, was secured to his back, a reassuring weight. The .50 caliber rounds that slumbered within the magazine were capable of tearing through the toughest armor. The weapon wasn't high-tech by the standards of the alien forces on this planet, but it was enough. It always had been. Cole adjusted his camo, blending seamlessly with the thick underbrush. His helmet was tucked beneath his arm, and his face, weathered from years of combat, was half covered by the tactical face mask he had grown to depend on. Only his eyes, sharp and focused, were visible. In the green haze of the jungle, they glinted with a quiet resolve. A whisper of static in his earpiece broke the silence. "Cole, this is command. You in position." He paused, scanning the distant ridgeline where the alien fortress stood. A dozen or so alien sentries patrolled the area, their figures barely visible through the dense foliage. But Cole knew where they were. His training, his instinct, told him everything he needed to know. "Affirmative," he replied, his voice low and even. "Target is General Cloric," came the response. "You have clearance to eliminate. All units are ready to move in once you've completed the mission. Good luck." Cole didn't need luck. He needed precision. And that's what he was going to deliver. He shifted his weight and began to move, his every step deliberate, calculated. The aliens were not known for their subtlety, but that didn't mean they weren't dangerous. In fact, they were relentless in their pursuit of superiority, and they had no concept of the human drive to survive. This mission wasn't just about taking down a high-value target, it was about sending a message. He paused again, crouching behind a thick cluster of ferns. The comms crackled again, but this time it was a voice from the other side of the line, an alien broadcast, not meant for him but intercepted by Earth's communication systems. "Report," came the garbled voice in an alien tongue. Cole couldn't understand the words, but he didn't need to. The tone was unmistakable, arrogance. "They still don't get it," he muttered to himself. He had overheard their conversation before, in their native language, and it was always the same. The aliens, in their ignorance, saw humanity as weak, primitive, a species that couldn't even begin to fathom the power at their disposal. Cole chuckled darkly. They were about to learn otherwise. He lifted his rifle and adjusted the scope, scanning the terrain with practiced ease. His target was just ahead, a narrow path that wound through a small clearing. The air seemed to hold its breath as he aligned his crosshairs, waiting for the perfect moment. The alien sentries had no idea he was there. To them, this jungle was their domain, their kingdom. They laughed at the human forces who had dared to challenge their superiority, dismissing them as insects that could be swatted away with little effort. They mocked Earth's primitive weaponry, convinced that their shields, their energy weapons, and their advanced armor made them invincible. Cole's finger hovered over the trigger. In his mind, he could already picture the shot, the way it would travel through the air with deadly accuracy, piercing Cloric's skull and ending his life in an instant. No fanfare, no heroism, just cold efficiency. But something caught his attention. A rustle in the brush, too subtle to be the wind. His head snapped to the right, eyes narrowing. The slightest movement, a shadow darting between trees. It was a scout, one of Cloric's men. Cole's grip tightened on his rifle. He couldn't afford to lose his position now. The alien wasn't looking directly at him, but the sentry was getting too close. One wrong move, and the whole mission could be compromised. "Patience," Cole whispered to himself. "You're not here to fight. You're here to end it." He exhaled slowly, his breath steadying as he focused on the target. The scout moved forward, unaware of the hunter in the shadows. It was time to act. Cole's movements were fluid and quick. He lifted his rifle, adjusting the scope, and in one smooth motion, his fingers squeezed the trigger. The sound of the shot was a distant crack, nearly drowned by the jungle's ambient noise. The scout collapsed without a sound, his body slumping into the ferns like a rag doll. No time to celebrate. The shot had echoed, but the alien forces hadn't reacted. Not yet. Cole's heart rate barely increased. He had no room for adrenaline, not here, not now. He adjusted his scope again, eyeing Cloric's position through the dense foliage. The general was still within his range. He could end this now. But then, a sharp crack of comms burst into his ear. "Did you hear that?" an alien voice said, its tone agitated. "There's movement in the sector. Investigate." "Stay sharp," Cole muttered, pulling his rifle into position. His target was within reach, but now the tension in the air had shifted. The aliens were beginning to realize something was wrong. Another slight movement. This time, it was Cloric himself, emerging from behind the safety of his forces. He moved with confidence, but that confidence would soon be shattered. One shot. One clean, perfect shot, and the war would change forever. But Cole remained patient. The time to strike had not yet come. The shot would need to be flawless. He adjusted his grip on the rifle and waited for the moment that would define everything. General Cloric stood at the center of his command post, staring at the holographic display that hovered above the table. His claws tapped impatiently, sending ripples across the glowing map of the jungle. He had no doubt that the human forces were out there, somewhere in the dense, humid landscape. But they were no threat. Not to him. Not to the Empire. "You really believe they can outsmart us?" Cloric asked, his voice a low growl that vibrated through the room. The alien officers around him did not respond at first, their eyes glued to the glowing screens, tracking the human movements through their superior technology. One of the officers, a young strategist named Kiner, broke the silence. "We have located the human squad, General. They're moving in the western quadrant. The rest of their forces are scattered." Cloric's lips curled into a sneer. Scattered? A disorganized attack. They're clearly outmatched. Their primitive weaponry can't even penetrate our shields. We'll crush them like insects. Kiner hesitated before speaking again, but Cloric's attention was already elsewhere. The general reached for his comm device, his large fingers manipulating it with ease. He opened a channel to his forces. "Prepare for engagement. Our technology is far superior to theirs. We will end this quickly." The screen flickered as the alien forces acknowledged the command. Their massive warships orbited the planet above, weapons primed and ready, but Cloric knew the battle would be decided on the ground. These humans were weak in the face of true power, an easy victory for the Empire. In the dense jungle below, Cole remained hidden, watching the alien base from his perch atop a knotted tree trunk. His scope had already found its mark several times, but he had held off. General Cloric was still surrounded by his officers, still confident in the belief that the humans would be wiped out. Cole could hear their voices through his earpiece, mocking the human forces in their guttural language. He didn't need a translator to understand the arrogance in their tone. The aliens underestimated the humans. They had no idea what they were up against. Primitive, the voice of one officer cut through the static. Their weapons are laughable. Look at them, struggling to carry those heavy, outdated guns. They can't even match the firepower we have. Cole's finger hovered over the trigger. He could take the officer now. One well-placed shot would end the mockery. But it wasn't time. Not yet. He glanced over to the ridge, where the alien warships were visible in the sky, their imposing shapes a testament to their overwhelming firepower. It was tempting, almost too easy, to take them down too. But it wasn't part of the mission. The objective was clear: Cloric. Just Cloric. In the jungle below, A squad of human soldiers moved forward cautiously, unaware of the alien gaze that tracked them. They had been dropped in several miles away from Cloric's position, knowing they would be the first to engage. The rest of the team was waiting for Cole's signal. Once Cloric was neutralized, the assault would be on. The aliens would have no choice but to retreat. But Cloric had no such intention of retreating. The general's belief in his own superiority was absolute. He paced across the control room, as if trying to convince himself of his victory. The humans will break before we even fire a single shot. They have no understanding of true power. Their so-called warriors are nothing more than children with toys. A low chuckle bubbled from his throat. He enjoyed the sound of it. His voice echoed in the hollow room, a sound that resonated with the certainty of triumph. One of his officers, an older alien named Zalrath, spoke up with a cautious edge to his voice. "General, the human sniper has been active. We've seen the bodies. But the rest of their forces are disjointed. They are not organized. Perhaps we should move quickly before they can form any kind of defense." Cloric dismissed the concern with a flick of his hand. "Don't be foolish, Zalrath. We have the numbers. We have the technology. Their sniper is just one man. Let him fire all he wants. We'll find him soon enough." Kiner nodded eagerly. "We've deployed extra sensors along the eastern perimeter. We will catch him, General." Cloric turned toward the younger officer, his expression a mix of amusement and disdain. "Let him try. This jungle is ours. They will never make it past our defenses." Kiner hesitated, but then his gaze hardened. "Yes, General. But what if their tactics are different from what we expect? What if they what?" Cloric interrupted. "They'll die like the rest of them. They have no real understanding of warfare. They're like children playing with fire. Now, stop wasting time and get back to your post." Kiner bowed his head, but the flicker of doubt in his eyes didn't escape Cloric's notice. Still, the general was confident. He had never lost a battle, and he wasn't about to start now. He'd seen hundreds of worlds fall before the Empire, and he had crushed civilizations far more advanced than this backwater planet called Earth. Meanwhile, Cole continued to watch from his perch, the tension growing with every passing moment. The aliens' overconfidence was their weakness. They were so wrapped up in their own superiority that they couldn't see what was right in front of them. The human sniper was a mere ghost to them, silent, patient, and deadly. Cole had taken down the first scout with ease. And now, Cloric's forces were making a fatal mistake by underestimating him. The general's voice echoed in Cole's earpiece, louder now as it was transmitted through the alien frequencies. "We'll crush them," Cloric boasted. "They don't even understand what's coming." Cole's lips curled into a tight smile. He was done waiting. He'd given them enough time to show their arrogance. Now it was time for the first strike. He didn't move, didn't make a sound. He wasn't concerned with their confidence or their arrogance. In the end, they would learn. The humans weren't here to play. They were here to fight. And Cole had just marked his target. "Let's see how well your arrogance holds up when I take your general's head," Cole whispered, his finger finding the trigger. Cole's breath was steady, his heart beating with the rhythm of a veteran soldier. The jungle around him was still, almost eerily quiet, save for the distant chatter of alien officers and the occasional snap of a branch as one of Cloric's sentries moved through the underbrush. He knew they were getting closer. The search was intensifying. But Cole was patient. Patience had always been his ally. His scope remained fixed on Cloric, who was still surrounded by his officers, the general's imposing figure unmistakable in the distance. Cloric was tall, even by the standards of the alien species, his silvery blue skin shimmering under the jungle's sunlight, his body armored in a series of iridescent plates. He was too exposed, too certain of his invulnerability. They never learn, Cole thought, his finger resting lightly on the trigger, waiting for the perfect moment. The general was speaking with his officers, his voice distorted by the static in the comms. But Cole had learned to read the cadence of speech, even through the garbled transmission. Cloric was angry, his voice rising as he barked orders. He was convinced that the humans were little more than a nuisance, not even worth the attention of his full strength. "They think they can kill me," Cloric said, his voice low and dripping with contempt. "They're weak. Primitive. I've fought entire armies that understood power, not these pests." Cole's lips tightened. There it was again, the arrogance. They didn't understand what they were facing. Cole adjusted his position, crawling a few feet to the left, scanning the area with his trained eyes. His entire body was tense, but he didn't let that affect his aim. The weight of the rifle on his back was a comfort now, like an extension of himself. He knew every inch of it, every tick of the bolt, every breath that guided the shot. The clearing where Cloric stood was framed by thick trees, but Cole had already memorized the geometry of the space. There were no obstacles between him and the general, only the trees and a few scattered rocks that provided minimal cover. Cloric was too arrogant to understand the danger. He thought he was in control. He didn't realize that Cole had already made his move. The first shot would be a warning. It would tear through the aliens' defenses, a crack in their belief that they were unbeatable. The second would end it. The air around him grew warmer, the smell of damp earth thick in his nostrils. A small insect buzzed past his face, but he didn't flinch. He barely even registered the movement, so focused was he on the target in his scope. Then, the moment came. Cloric stepped forward, his massive form framed by the trees. His guards flanked him, but their attention was elsewhere, distracted by the radio chatter coming from their high command. Cole had studied Cloric for weeks, had watched the general's movements, learned the rhythm of his patrols. This was the opening he had been waiting for. He exhaled slowly and squeezed the trigger. The bullet flew from the rifle with deadly precision, tearing through the still air. The sound was muffled by the thick foliage but still audible, sharp like the crack of a whip. Cloric's guards froze, their heads snapping toward the noise. For a brief second, time seemed to slow, and Cole felt his heartbeat echo in his ears. Cloric's body jerked, the high-powered round hitting him squarely in the chest. His armor, once thought impervious, was shattered in an instant. The force of the impact threw him back, and he crumpled to the ground in a heap. The jungle held its breath for a moment. Then chaos erupted. The guards screamed, rushing to Cloric's side, their weapons drawn. They had no idea where the shot had come from, but it didn't matter. They were panicked, disorganized, their senses heightened in a way that played into Cole's hand. They had no chance of locating him now. Cole reloaded quickly, his hands moving with the speed and efficiency of someone who had done this thousands of times. Another shot, this one aimed at the officer closest to Cloric. It struck the alien in the chest, sending him crashing to the ground. The others scattered in all directions, their alien cries filling the air as they tried to make sense of the attack. But Cole was already repositioning, his rifle humming with purpose. The first wave had been taken care of. Now the others would follow. Through the scope, he watched as Cloric's remaining bodyguards floundered, struggling to regroup. They were disoriented, too slow. A second shot rang out and another guard dropped, his body crumpling to the forest floor. The others retreated behind trees, shouting orders in their native language, but they were too late. The damage had been done. The fear was already in their eyes. "Command, come in," one of the surviving officers said, his voice strained. "We need backup. The general is down." "I repeat, the general is down." Cole smiled grimly. He knew the aliens would call for backup. It was only a matter of time before they realized that Cloric had been taken out. But it would be too late. The tide had already turned. The jungle around him seemed to close in, the sounds of alien forces scrambling almost drowning out the peaceful hum of the environment. The humans had been underestimated, but Cole had no intention of allowing them to recover. He had done his job. Now it was time for the rest of the team to sweep in and finish what he had started. He heard the thump of boots in the distance. human soldiers closing in, moving with the precision of a well-oiled machine. The rest of the squad was near. "Move in," Cole whispered into his comm, "it's over. We've got the general." The orders came through immediately. "On our way. Secure the perimeter." Cole stood slowly, careful not to make a sound. His job was done. The alien general had been taken out, and the rest of his forces were in disarray. He wasn't going to stick around for the cleanup. He had been here for a specific reason, and that reason had been fulfilled. As the rest of the squad arrived, guns raised, ready to engage, Cole slipped back into the jungle's embrace, fading into the shadows once more. The humans had proven they were anything but primitive, and in the wake of Cloric's death, the alien empire would learn the price of underestimating Earth's soldiers. The sun was setting over the jungle, casting long shadows across the forest floor. The distant thrum of alien vehicles reverberated through the air, a constant reminder of the battle's shifting tides. Cloric was dead, and with his death came chaos, a disarray the aliens hadn't anticipated, one they weren't prepared to handle. Cole crouched behind a thick tree, watching as the last remnants of Cloric's forces scrambled in disarray. They were scattered, confused, their once pristine formations now nothing more than a desperate, haphazard retreat. It had taken only a few well-placed shots to shatter their confidence, to leave them vulnerable. "Report," Cole's voice was calm, steady, as it crackled through his comms. "Squad 1 reports successful elimination of remaining guard. We're moving toward the supply depot now," came the reply, sharp and clear. It was Jones, one of the team's sharpshooters. "Good. Secure the perimeter and await further instructions." Cole's eyes shifted back to the alien compound, now more vulnerable than ever. Cloric's death had sent shockwaves through the command structure. The soldiers were scrambling, trying to reorganize, but without their leader, they were lost. His sniper strike had been precise, surgical, and now, as the battle unfolded in the distance, the realization of the Empire's vulnerability was sinking in. The last remaining command unit was regrouping, a final attempt at holding the line. But Cole knew it was over. The aliens had underestimated human resolve, human ingenuity. The sniper strike had been the first blow. The rest of the human forces were already sweeping through the jungle, methodical and merciless. "Command, this is Cole. I've got eyes on their final unit. Requesting clearance to neutralize the remaining command post." There was a brief pause before the reply came through, the voice crackling in his earpiece. "Clearance granted. Make it quick, Sergeant." With a small nod to himself, Cole set his rifle down and pulled out a small, handheld device. It was a detonator, a tool he knew all too well. He'd placed charges along the outer perimeter of the alien compound earlier, before the attack had even begun. They would be the final signal that humanity had truly won this battle. The device beeped twice as he armed it, and Cole moved silently through the underbrush. The soldiers were close, and the time for subtlety had passed. This was the final step, the act that would ensure the Empire would never forget the price of underestimating Earth's military. As Cole moved deeper into the compound's outskirts, the sounds of alien chatter grew louder, and the distant hum of their technology echoed across the jungle. They hadn't yet realized what was coming. Their forces were in disarray, but their arrogance hadn't allowed them to acknowledge the depth of the human strike. He crouched behind a rock formation, scanning the command post ahead. A handful of officers remained, trying to coordinate their defenses. They were in full retreat, but they had no idea that their entire structure would soon crumble. A light breeze stirred the trees above, carrying with it the scent of damp earth. Cole adjusted his scope, aligning his shot with precision. His target was a high-ranking officer, standing just outside the command post's entrance, barking orders to the scattered soldiers. One more shot, Cole thought, his finger resting on the trigger. He exhaled, steadying his aim. The officer was in the open, completely unaware of the sniper watching him from the shadows. The crack of the rifle echoed through the jungle, a sharp, decisive sound. The officer crumpled to the ground, his body twitching once before stilling. The remaining soldiers shouted in alarm, rushing toward the fallen figure. But it was too late. The chaos had already taken root, and now, the final blow would come. Cole stood, making his way swiftly toward the control center. His boots crushed the undergrowth beneath him, but he didn't care. The mission was complete. The alien forces had lost their general, their command structure, and now their final stronghold was within his reach. He reached the center of the compound, where the last of the officers were attempting to activate their escape protocols. But Cole had already anticipated their next move. The charges he had set earlier were primed, ready to detonate. He paused for a moment, listening to the frantic voices coming from inside. The alien officers were shouting to each other, their language foreign but tinged with panic. "We have to evacuate. The command post is compromised," one of them yelled. "Get the ships ready. We can't stay here," another responded, the fear evident in their tone. Cole smiled grimly. They thought they could escape. They thought they could run. But there was no escape. Not anymore. He pressed the button. The first explosion rocked the ground beneath his feet, sending a shockwave through the compound. The blast was deafening, tearing through the walls of the command center, sending chunks of debris flying in every direction. The alien officers inside screamed, but it was already too late. The damage was done. The walls of their command center crumbled, and the remaining soldiers were either buried under rubble or caught in the firestorm that followed. The jungle fell silent again, the rumble of the explosion fading into the distance. The only sound now was the soft hum of human soldiers advancing toward the wreckage, securing the area. Cole watched for a moment, the realization settling in. The battle was over. The Empire had fallen. Their forces were broken, their command structure in ruins. The humans had won. "Mission complete," Cole said into his comms, his voice steady despite the weight of the victory. "We've secured the compound. The aliens are finished." The response was swift, almost immediate. "Roger that, Sergeant. Fall back to extraction point. Mission success." Cole turned and made his way back toward the extraction zone, where the rest of his team was waiting. The jungle seemed quieter now, as if the very air was holding its breath in the aftermath of the battle. The task had been difficult, but the victory was undeniable. The aliens had underestimated the humans, and in the end that had been their greatest mistake.